All right, welcome back to the Hudson Valley 360 Gridiron Glance, brought to you by the Columbia Green Federal Credit Union. This week we have Coach Mike Bowman back with us.
It is a pleasure to return. I'm really psyched up to sit in the seat that Leamy sat in the last time. It was great.
Hey, that seat's reserved for legends, okay?
Yeah, okay, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. But you're back by popular demand. Yeah. We got such good feedback about your first visit
great.
here that had to have you back, Coach.
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure being here. I mean, we go back a long way. I mean, I still remember the recording that you made on the radio when you were on the radio all the time there, relaying the championship game back to Hillsdale, New York. And
you still got those tapes?
I have them somewhere, yeah. And Brian, of course, he was on my baseball team. I had him in my gym class. So, I mean, a lot of connections, good stuff here.
6 degrees of separation over here. It works.
So this year we have a bit of a abnormally with a lot of our teams. 4 of our teams combined are 2-11.
Yeah.
So, long-time coach, you had one of the best teams in the area for a long time, but you've also been on the other end of it.
Yep.
How do you keep those kids that are on these 0-6, 1-5 teams?
Yeah, it's definitely a chore because, especially when you get towards the end with a few games remaining and you have a lot of the teams that are in the playoffs, and then you just are playing a couple of not meaningless to them, but I mean, some of them seem like it's meaningless, these crossover games,
right,
where they try to match you up with a team that's of equal record. And that's when it really gets tough because, it's towards the end of the season, and I say, it's almost over, and, now I'm looking forward to play basketball or some other sport, in the wintertime. And to keep the kids motivated after they've had a prolonged, not successful in the terms of wins and losses season, it is difficult. I think you got to have a little bit of a mix in there, make it a little bit more fun, maybe a few more different types of trick plays, something to keep them positive. Play a little bit more kids than you've normally had to try to keep everybody's interest up that they're going to be playing, and not just holding the pads for somebody that's going to be blocking and tackling and out there all the time. But it's a task, and Taconic Hills, Cairo, Coxsackie, in our division are they've only won one game, and at this point it's hard to get going. I can only speak for our team. Mark, I talk with him. Anderson, I talk with him constantly, and he's still got a real positive attitude about everything. He's pretty much a young team with a lot of kids coming back, so that's something that he can really build on now, and really start focusing in and coaching the younger players, so they can develop, get some experience, and then for next year and come along. And I think probably most of the coaches that haven't been successful are probably doing the same type of thing, or at least I would think they would be.
Sure. To piggyback off that, something that's happening not just in our area but nationwide is the dwindling numbers for programs. How do you combat against something like that? Because it's tough, I know, because there's so many options for kids nowadays, and as you mentioned, some kids specialize in one sport, or they feel they just want to go to one sport.
Yeah.
As a football coach, what can you do to maybe encourage kids to come out?
Yeah, I know. It's not getting any easier. I mean, back in the day, I had 38 varsity players on my roster. Mm-hmm. That wasn't including the JV.
That's right.
I had another 30 on the JV. Uh-huh. I mean, we had probably 70 in the entire program. Mm-hmm. This year, there was 35 in the entire program, JV and varsity combined. So the numbers have totally dwindled, no question about it. It doesn't help with the concussion situation that's, plagued football, and the pros now who have just come down with it. I mean, I remember when I was even playing in college and high school. I mean, a concussion, what's that?
Yeah.
I mean, what's a concussion?
Right.
Nobody even heard of it. Mm-hmm. The concussion was you got your bell rung, and then you get the cobwebs out. Okay, fine, goodbye, get back out there.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that's probably what happened in the pros and stuff like that they didn't want to miss because they're high-paid athletes. If they sit down, they're not going to get their paycheck. So they probably played through that where they shouldn't, and now 30 years later, all of a sudden they're getting headaches and repercussions from the concussions.
Right.
So, I mean, And the parents, they're a little hesitant about letting their, little guy play football with all this stuff going on. They're looking at either playing soccer or, some other type of non-contact sport. And staying away from football. I mean, we had a feeder program at our school with the Storm.
Right.
And it dwindled to the point because of, the parents not really wanting the kids to play football. Right. The Wildcats over in Chatham, Valatia, Ichabod have a nice program. They've had it for a long time. But they draw from a fairly bigger area than we did. So if you have a smaller area and you don't have as many kids to begin with, and then you lose half of them, then you don't really have anything. So it's difficult. But like you said, too, I mean, a lot of the kids now are focusing in on playing a single sport. They want to, their priorities. If it's baseball, then, you can't play football and maybe get hurt. And there's fall baseball. Yeah. I mean, they're still playing. Yeah. I mean, Sean Rowell, one of my best friends, and Jason Jaws, I mean, their kids are going to our school. They're playing right up until November. Yeah. So
play as many games as the major leagues.
So that's another thing. You have baseball in there, and then you have basketball. So I mean, the 3-sport athlete is just about the window. Goodbye. I mean, he's not there anymore.
I wanted to touch on coaching as well. I mean, you see a large turnover. More so, I think, than you had seen in the past. You were at Kind of Kills coaching for 20 years, took a little hiatus, then came back and coached a few more years. I mean, what do you think is the reasoning behind that? I mean, so many coaches just staying a few years and then that's it.
Well, I mean, you certainly don't do it for the money.
Right.
I mean, Angela Jaws, our athletic director, she was great, and she is great. She still is there. Yeah, and she came out with a survey to help the coaches, I guess, with the next negotiating contract, get more money, and she put out a thing. How many hours do you actually put into the program? And so I put it down and everything else like this, and I was really light on the hours, but I figured it out that I got paid probably minus 27 cents an hour, between the traveling, going up to see games for scouting, out to Fonda sometimes and everything else. Sitting on Sundays, looking at tape from the previous games until with the opponents. Right. I mean, it was just a long, day and weekend, and all through the summer. Yep. After football's over, try to have workouts for the kids, to stay in shape. It's really a year-long job, and that's what football, basketball, baseball is becoming. It's becoming a year-long thing, and so kids are prioritizing. A lot of the coaches don't have a lot of time to dedicate themselves to the sport. Sure. I mean, we don't have really a lot of teachers at our school that are coaching. They come from outside the district. They come from outside, or their kids are in the district and they'll come in and coach. But.
And there's so many restrictions as far as coaches goes as well.
In football, we have. On the staff of 7, we have 2 teachers, one full-time teacher and one that is a teacher's aide that are coaching football. Sure.
So not many teachers at all.
And no, there isn't. And so that's another thing. And it's a thankless job, kind of. The only thing that you get grateful for is you're certainly not in it for the money.
Right, of course.
You're in there just because it's something that you like to do, and try to pass on to the kids, some good things that they can remember, and it's difficult to find coaches now because, number one, you have to be a certified coach to be able to coach. And you just can't say, hey, Bo, can I come out there and help you today, coach on the field with my former players? Sure. I said, geez, I'm sure I would love to have you, Tommy, but you can't step on the field and coach and help coach throw them even a pass. You have to be a certified coach.
Even volunteer coaches.
Yeah. You have to have certain criteria. You have to have CPR, first aid. You have to be taking coaching class 1, then you have to have coaching class 2, coaching class 3. So by the time you're actually a certified coach, it's probably costing you, and nobody pays for this except you. I mean, the districts don't pay for it. And so that takes a lot of time and extra money just to do that.
Of course.
And of course, a lot of people are critical. It's like the backseat drivers. They sit up in the stands and
they love you.
They don't know. They have no idea what it's really like, and they're not in the trenches to see what it's all about. So. A lot of people say, "Geez, that's not worth the aggravation." It's difficult to coach, and I think really a successful coach and the one that's there has gone through all those wars and everything else, and headed off most of the problems, and is there for the kids. And so, I mean, that's what you're getting.
Right. This is a man that coached the 3 major sports at kind of kills.
Yeah, for
at
a
one
while.
time.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Basketball, baseball. How did you do
a couple of years. It was difficult. I remember, I always loved baseball, so football and baseball were my normal things. And then I think it was 96 or 97 or something like that. They couldn't find a basketball coach, and they knew that I had
Mike Bowman.
They knew that I had some background in basketball, so I stepped in, and it wasn't. It wasn't until Prusser went to the sectionals. I forget when, one of his second year, but it was in 2000 and maybe 14 or so that he went to the sectionals and won a game. That was the first time they had won since I had won a sectional game in 90, I think, 6. So, it's crazy how it goes, But it's always been fun for me.
Now, this week we have a number of home games. We have quite a few games that mean something, too. Friday night, all games are on Friday this week. Starting out, we have Shalmont-Hudson, which is a pretty interesting game in terms of Class B.
Absolutely. No question about it. Hudson, after suffering 2 losses to start the season, have won 4 in a row now, coming off that big 46-6 victory over Lansingburg last week. Zach Wilburn went nuts. 9 carries, 196 yards, a couple of touchdowns, completed a 55-yard pass. Willie Walker had 3 touchdowns rushing through a 30-yard touchdown pass. A great all-around effort by the Hawks, who were playing without their big 2-way lineman, Zion Brown, who hurt his knee a week earlier in the Coble-Scale game. But that game, essentially, this coming weekend in Hudson, is for the Rhineford Division title. Hudson is 4-0. Shalmont, after losing their first 3 games, is now 3-3, 3-1 in the division.
Yeah.
Interesting setup. If Shalmont should upset Hudson at home in Hudson, you have Coble-Scale, who will probably defeat Lansingburg, you would think, by looking at the records. You'd have a 3-way tie for the top of the division, 4-1, 4-1, 4-1 between Hudson, Coble-Scale, and Shalmont. So
that makes things a mess.
Yeah, so for the schedule makers and the Rhineford Division higher-ups, they're hoping, I'm sure, secretly the Hudson beats Shalmont.
I'm hoping they do, too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that would be the second straight Rhineford Division title, so a lot riding on this game, Shalmont and Hudson. Should be a good one, too.
Shalmont's coming back now,
They are coming back.
I mean,
they are.
I was totally surprised at 48-0 beating Ravenna.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they would beat Ravenna, but I thought it would be maybe like 24-20.
Sure.
I mean, they whitewashed them.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't even score.
This is not your parents' Ravenna team. This is a vintage Ravenna team. They're a little down this year.
I think Shalmont is kind of like Hudson. I mean, they're peaking at the right time.
Absolutely.
And that should be a barn burner on Friday night.
The Odell kid's big, tall kid, quarterback, can throw the ball all over the field. Got a pretty good sophomore running back in Jake Sanford. Played sparingly on the varsity last year as a freshman, but they have some big kids up front, and that all starts up front, as you well know.
Yeah, that's true.
It should be an interesting game.
Now, what about the Brown kid? Is he due back at all this season, or is it career
They're hoping so.
Season ending?
Last I had spoken to the coaching staff, he was scheduled to have an MRI. He's up walking around on it. I saw him at the Lansingburg game, and he always looks ready to play. And
walking around on and playing are like way different.
No, I know that. But
I know what you're saying.
He's looking to play, but they want to be safe with him and make sure everything gets checked out and before they unleash him again. But if they can get him out there for the playoffs, that would be great.
That would be even well.
Safety first, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we also have Chatham has a big game this week, hosting Voorheesville. Chatham, when they're on, they're on. They've outscored their opponents 249 to 53 this year, coming off a big win against Coxsackie.
Yep,
54 that should be an interesting game.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
both 4-1 in the South Division of Class C.
Yeah. I think Waterville's pretty much wrapped that up.
Yep, they did 5-1. They're done. They have a non-division game this week.
And and they beat Chatham. So I was surprised actually when Voorheesville beat Waterville, but we got the film for the Voorheesville game to watch from Waterville, so we saw the Waterville-Voorheesville game, and Waterville really missed opportunities. I think they had the ball on the 1 foot yard line, and they fumbled it in the end zone. They should have definitely won that game. Chatham's tough. I mean, they have a running threat, a passing threat. They're not a one-dimensional team, so they're very good. Are they playing at home?
They are in Chatham.
So that'll help because Voorheesville is one of the few teams that play Saturday afternoons. They don't have lights. There's not a lot of teams left that don't have lights that play Saturday.
One of the few.
I mean, there's got to be. I'd say there's in the whole Capital District maybe under 10.
Right.
Because I look at the Sunday paper for the Saturday scores because those are the teams that play Saturday afternoon, and there's not a lot.
Yes, only a few.
So I look for Chatham to win, but it's going to be a real. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Chatham will win that game.
Two very good teams are both in the playoffs, but this is important for playoff positioning. If Chatham wins, they'll finish second behind Waterville, which sets up a better matchup for them in the North Division. Because again, there's 8 teams, 4 teams from each division. First place plays fourth, second place plays third, and then
the Northern Division, you mean?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's some good teams.
And then I guess Tamarack is probably we played Tamarack to kind of kill. And they're a funny team this year. I mean, they can score points, but they give them up.
Won their first 2 games.
I mean, but
gave up points in doing so. But you're right, they
lost to Waterville last week, 42-32.
Yeah,
I mean, 32 points is enough to win.
That's the one game where they obviously scored nothing. But they've been putting up points.
It's funny how it goes, but and I think so. Those are your 4 teams. Regardless of how they place, that'll make the Southern Division playoffs.
Yeah, and up north you've got Holy Trinity, Mechanicsville, Stillwater, and Hoosick Falls.
Holy
you got
Trinity.
A team as good as Hoosick Falls.
See what they did with Hoosick Falls?
Yeah.
48 to something.
And this is a team Chatham lost to 13-6, but should have won that game themselves.
Holy Trinity. I had a feeling in the beginning that was going to be a real tough team, and they're just they're on a roll right now.
Yeah.
I mean, to see what they did with the Stillwater.
Yeah. Which was surprising.
Oh, my goodness.
Now you mentioned Tamarack. They'll be playing Takana Kills in Tamarack this Friday night.
Tamarack,
Takana Kills coming off their first win of the season.
Wow. Jeez. It's always great to get the monkey off your back. That's for darn sure.
Homecoming, too.
Yeah,
that was like a throwback to your days. You had 2 kids over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, that's great.
137. Dusty Snyder had 102.
The thing is, like I said, Mark's got a young team. I mean, both Shane and Snyder will be back next year. They have, 8 starters, I think, back next year. I mean, they only have like a handful of seniors. So that's what I said about motivation for the end of the season. I mean, that's what he's really going to, look at towards that type of thing. And I think most teams that aren't in the playoffs are going to try to experience and give those other players, the younger players that are coming back, a little bit more time. Not so much just discarding the seniors like anything, but I think you sit down and talk to them and say, this is how we're going to work it out. And so you can have a nice blend there.
Absolutely. Now we mentioned Shane Bradway. You coached him. You brought him up as an 8th grader, and he started quite a bit.
Yeah, he has a twin brother, Gavin. That's moved away with his mother, and Shane stayed. But they both started on defense on the 2 corners at 8th graders. And this is the athletic pool that we have to work with. I mean, we're out there for summer workouts and everything else like that, and I'm saying, I didn't even really know who he was, I mean, all of a sudden, and Dusty Snyder, too.
Dusty's tough kid.
Dusty started as a ninth grader for me. And I'm saying, gee, who are these guys? I said, I never even saw them before. They were on the modified team, and they didn't even play JV, and all of a sudden, they're having summer workouts. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to use these guys. They're better than anything I got out there now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Not only did they make the team, they started.
Yeah, so, well, that's always been one of my philosophies. I mean, if you're going to bring a kid up to the varsity, that's right. You don't bring him up to sit him on the bench. You've got to play that kid, so.
No question.
Definitely. Yeah. So now we also have Ichabod, still looking for its first win. They're facing that Ravenna team that's a bit down this year. It's going to be at Ichabod Friday night, but still, Ichabod's starting to score.
They are.
And they couldn't for a while.
They scored a couple of touchdowns in 2 of their last 3 games. They have a good quarterback, sophomore Austin Walsh. Big game in the loss to Cobleskill. He completed 16 of 31 passes, 144 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Toby Zuko, a big game, caught 13 of those passes for over 100 yards and the 2 touchdowns.
They have a fairly young team?
They do have actually a very young team. Last year they had so many freshmen and sophomores that are now sophomores and juniors.
Well, see, there you got to
they're building small steps.
And hopefully it'll pay off.
I think it will. They have talent.
Yeah, I don't really see him getting past Ravenna, to be honest with you. But in the crossovers at the end, they match him up with 2 teams that are fairly, comparable to them. Mm-hmm. So they would probably have a chance, I would think, to win their last couple games.
I'm not predicting they're going to win, but I think absolutely they can win. Ravenna has had its struggles this year, which is uncharacteristic for that team, a perennial playoff team in Class B. They have a good kid in the backfield named Marlon Lang, had a couple of big games, 176 yards, 163 yards this season, almost had 198 he finished with against Hudson. He's their one threat on offense, I feel. But I think at home, with home crowd behind him, I think Ichabod definitely can give him a run and
I hope
possibly
so.
even pull out a win. I'd love to see it too.
Man, I would love
Those
to see
kids
that
work hard and they're deserving.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Then lastly, we have over at Ravenna, it's going to be Coxsackie Athens hosting Carroll Durham for the annual Greene County Cup.
Right.
Both teams are a bit down this year. Carroll Durham looking for its first win. Coxsackie has 1 win. But Coxsackie is putting up points every week. They're
competitive every game.
I don't see Carroll coming near them with that passing combinations they have.
Yeah, they have a lot.
I don't think they can stay.
Vince Conicchills beat them for the first win, 40-21 last week.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Coxsackie's got too much for him overall. To be honest with you, it's poor Carroll Durham. I think now they've got one of the longest losing streaks in the state.
Actually, it is the longest losing streak.
Is it really? Because I looked on the state things.
Buffalo Nichols, I believe, was the team that had 1 more loss in it, but they've won.
They won. Jeez.
So 19 for Carroll Durham, but again, you're talking about a very young team and a fairly young program. In fact,
they don't even have a JV. So I mean, I don't even think they have a modified.
No, so you're talking about.
So I mean, you want to play football? If you're in 8th grade and you pass the classification test, we'll put you on the varsity.
Mm-hmm. And you'll probably play quite a bit.
So I mean, they're huge.
They do have athletes on that squad as well, but it's just a matter of having enough athletes and enough depth, and that.
You spend half your season working on.
Now you talk about a tough coaching thing. I mean, that would be really tough when know you're going to probably take your lumps week in and week out, and with a really young team, and you got a long losing streak, and it's.
But you know what? They show up every week, and they scored 21 points on Conicchills last week, so
they do.
They've been competitive in several of their games.
Yeah.
But
I don't think they've been shut out yet this year. They've always at least scored 1 touchdown, so they're still trying.
They're not giving up.
And that's all you can ask for a young team like that.
That's exactly correct. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so everybody plays Friday. No Saturday games this week, and I think that's it for this week.
Get out and support your teams, okay?
That's it. And lots of home games this week, so you can go to Hudson, Chatham, Ichabod, travel over to Ravenna for the Coxsackie game. So find a game and head out to it.
Enjoy.
All right. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's always a pleasure.
It's always an honor to have you in here with us. We got to get you again,
That sounds good to me. Anytime.
Basketball season, baseball season.
For sure. Man, for all seasons right here.
Yeah.
All right, and we are presented by Columbia Green Federal Credit Union.